I'd like to present the first ever Southeastern Wisconsin Short Track Hall of Fame Lifetime Achievement Award. And in order to do that, we're going to ask Mr. Dick Melius to come back to the microphone for that presentation.
Thank you, David. At this time, I'd like John and Sandy Ziegler to join us on stage, please. And I'd also like Father Dale Grubba to join us on stage. Lifetime achievement. You know, the board of directors, Dave Magnus, myself, and others that have been on the board for quite a few years, kind of wrestled with this for quite some time. We didn't want it to take away from or compromise the induction of so many great people. And then, in the last year, some great people, John and Sandy Ziegler, started talking to us and came up with some good ideas. And they wanted to get involved. John and Sandy have been great sponsors of the Hall of Fame for years. And I've been privileged to be friends with John and Sandy for a long time as well. And we decided that we were going to go ahead with it. And they had a name that they wanted us to consider. And that name was Father Dale Grubba. Now let me tell you a few things about that real quick. Father Grubba has been a pillar of support to so many racing families during so many trying times. But he has also been there to offer support to many young drivers who are working their way up in the racing world. I don't know anyone who has a greater positive influence on the racing community from the spiritual aspect. My notes say that Father Grubba has started covered racing in 1963. His presence has been witnessed by almost every track throughout Wisconsin, as well as most and many of the NASCAR events. When Father Grubba celebrated 50 years in the priesthood this past summer, I was privileged to take my dad and a couple of the inductees, Bill Schwister, Gene Schwister, Dennis Lampman, and others, up to be part of that great experience in Wausau. Hundreds of competitors and close friends trekked to State Park Speedway, where the Wimmers were our host, and we were honored on a great event. Now, I want you to just take a minute and listen to some of the names that were there, but that also have been influenced by Father Grubba since 1963. Listen and see if you recognize anyone on this list, or if any of them might just be in the Hall of Fame. Bobby Allison, Clifford Allison, Alan Kulwicki, Davey Allison, Dick Trickle, Joe Shear, Miles the Mouse Melius, Johnny Ziegler, Rich Summers, Willie Gaden, Marv Marzafka, Tom Refner, Ken Schrader, Dennis Prunty, Kurt Busch, Dennis Lampman, Wayne Erickson, Johnny Sauter, last night's truck winner, Al Schill, Brian Refner, Richie Bickle, Todd Baling, Joel Laufer, Dave Marcus. I could go on and on and on. Were there a few Hall of Famers in there? Somebody that we might all remember? Certainly there were. This past September, I retired after 37 years working at Slinger Speedway for Wayne and Rodney Erickson. It was just a great experience for me. And as usual, they're trying to create a little surprise for somebody when they retire, so they asked me to come down on the front straightaway. And I went down there, and they had a nice cake and everything. But you know what was the best thing of all? They're standing at that little opening in the wall in the front straightaway of Slinger Speedway was Father Grubba. And that meant more than anything else. So, that said, John and Sandy Ziegler have sponsored this event, this opportunity, this Lifetime Achievement Award, and it is with great pleasure that the Southeastern Wisconsin Short Track Hall of Fame present the first Lifetime Achievement Award to Father Dale Grubba.
Thank you very much, and I just would have you know that it's just been a blessing to have all of you as part of my life. I couldn't think of a better world to be in than the racing world. Like they said, I've been in it since 1963. Just to mention, I don't want to mention everybody, and I'll miss people if I do, but you know, the people that first gave me my opportunity was when I was ordained in 1966 was Howard Johnson and Jerry Benson, who let me do invocations at the Dells. And then Sam Bardis, of course, invited me to Capitol Speedway and Golden Sands, and it just flew from there on, you know, and you know, the best thing about it was that, you know, the racing that I was watching was very exciting. Marlon Wahlbeck was the king of the hill in those days, and his sons, Kent and Kurt, are here. I'd have them stand representing their late dad, if they would, because he was my first race hero, you know, and I followed him, you know, as a fan in those days. And then, of course, it became Marv Marzofka and Tom Reffner, who are here, Johnny Ziegler, and Dick Trickle, you know, and tonight it's a great privilege to be, and I thought about this a lot, it's a great privilege to be on the stage the same night that Dick is being represented. It's just a wonderful thing. Dick always kept me on my toes. You know, he would have questions like, when you retire as a priest, can you chase women and drink beer? And I'd say no. He'd say, well, why do you want to retire? That's why I haven't retired. Or one night at Capitol Speedway, or afternoon at Capitol Speedway, hot day. And Dick told this story 100 times if he told it once. It was a hot day. 3 gals, scantily dressed, came walking into the pits after the races. And he looked at me and he said, what does a priest think when he sees that? And I said, he doesn't think. You know, and Dick told that story over and over again. But Dick was also an inspiration to me, too, in terms of every year he would say, you know, it's good to have you back on the scene. Then my opportunities, you know, came for writing with John Quinn and Doris. I saw Doris just recently, and of course Dick Berggren. And people like Bobby Allison and Humpy Wheeler and a number of others opened doors for me along the way. But you know, when I think of my life, it's truly been blessed. You know, I think of it all the time as, yeah, there are difficulties in life, but you know, I certainly have had my blessings, and a lot of my blessings have really come through the field of racing and the people of racing. You know, when I look at those of us who were born when I was born, you know, and who lived through the era that I lived through, you know, the short track racing in central Wisconsin, the modifieds, which, you know, I got to know them as well as the central Wisconsin people by writing a book about them. But when you think of that era of racing down here in the Milwaukee area, when you think of how privileged we were to be able to go to the Milwaukee Mile and see the USAC championship cars and the stock cars, which I believe at that time were stronger than NASCAR. And then you could go up to Road America and watch the McLarens. You know, we lived in a wonderful, wonderful era of racing. You know, and I'm always grateful for the fact that, you know, if I was going to be involved in racing, I was born into the era, you know, that I was. So, you know, I'm really thankful for every moment that I've spent with so many different people. You know, every so often people say to me, do you know Father so-and-so down here or there? Or do you know that Father so-and-so down there? I say, no, I don't know him at all. I haven't had time to get to know any priests. Besides that, they're boring. I've got a lot of race people that I know. Why would I want to hang around with them? You know, maybe in the afterlife, but not in this life. But, you know, and each year the diocese has their annual convention of priests, and they honored me at the 50th. And I must say that was really a humbling experience, you know, when we were at Wausau. And I called, I think, like 126 people, and not one of them turned me down, and every one of them was there. It was truly humbling to think that, you know, people would show up en masse like that. But at any rate, we had the 50th for the priests, and you know, you have to get up and you have to say something. So, you know, I got up and I said, well, this is how, and I named the Father Gary Crenenbuhl. I said, when Father Gary Crenenbuhl has my funeral, here's what he's going to say. And if he says anything more, I will come out of the grave and I will beat him to death with every plastic flower in that cemetery. And this is the sentence which he has in his wallet. It goes like this. You know, life is not meant to be lived to arrive at the grave well preserved, but rather to come sliding in sideways, worn out, yelling, "Holy shit, what a ride." And I could truly tell you this, you know, as a result of knowing all of you, that truly is a fact. Huh?
1 minute.
Yes.
I'll just be real quick here. You know, my wife Sandy and myself are fortunate enough to be here, and we're called sponsors. Yeah, but really we're racers. And what's a racer? A racer is the guy who drives a car, and after all, the pit crew and everybody else works on it real hard. If it turns and goes, that's fine. All he does is get the credit. To me, race drivers ain't really much. But what is much? It's the wives that sit at home night after night why the pit crew people and the drivers are out working on the car. A racer is the kids that sit at home and wonder, where's Daddy? You guys are the heroes, the guys that drive them. And this is a sponsor for Father Dale. He's here for anybody, not only his church people, but he's here for racers. And that's the way he is, and he's truly our gift from God for racers. Thank you.